Welcome to today's powertrain. My name is Phil. I'm with IntelliFran, and we provide coaching, guidance, leadership, marketing, sales training, operations support, you name it. If it involves a weight loss facility, whether you're part of a national franchise or you're a standalone operated facility operated by a physician, a chiropractor, or a dietitian, nutritionist, there may be some level of support we can provide. We are the gap that fills the disconnect between you being alone and if you were with a corporate entity of some sort. There should be some high level of corporate support, although most national franchises don't even do that these days. They're in the business of selling franchises, which is not a bad thing. Their job is to grow the brand, and sometimes support takes a hit. We fill that gap. We work with a number of national weight loss brands. We work with a number of physicians, chiropractors, and again, standalone nutritionists and dietitians all over the US and Canada. Some of the biggest brands that you've ever heard of in the weight loss industry, we count amongst our clients. So today what we're going to talk about is closing more weight loss sales. Now, as a way of establishing some street cred, we have been involved, we being me and some of the other members of the team, but collectively we've been involved in the sale of over $900 million in weight loss programs and product sales. And you figure some things out along the way. And that covers an expanse of time. And the key is to stay up to date with consumer behavior and consumer trends. And selling a weight loss program today is nothing like it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's in many markets, it's not even the same way it was 18 months ago. And we see some markets where you need to stay ahead of the curve in the way you approach some of your consumers, your prospects. And I don't just mean from a marketing standpoint. I mean once they've walked in the door, because they have a lot of choices. They have a lot of access to a lot of information. We've got one brand in particular that we work with that is absolutely just about every market they go into, they own it in a handful of months, which is then followed up by a plethora of online negative reviews and complaints. Now, if you look at the proportion of complaints versus happy members, clients, and patients, it's infinitesimal, but by the sheer number of people they enroll, it creates a lot of disparity, at least in the minds of the consumer. So what I'm going to cover with you today is what are some things you can do to close more sales by helping your prospects get past all the clutter, all the noise that's around them, and focus on what it is you need to have them focus on. So the first part of this is understanding all the elements that go into your presentation. You've got an initial greeting, which may not sound like that big of a deal, but there's some things you need to do. You need to have an icebreaker. You need to do some fact finding. You need to face-to-face deal with the spouse objection, the money objection, the think about it objection, the fear of failure objection, their motivation for any upcoming event issues that are coming up, their concerns about health, those types of things, the influence of those around them, whether they're coworkers, relatives, or friends. You need to deal with all those things head on. And all of this is before you've even told them anything about your program. And so then the last two parts are presenting the features and benefits of your program and how they relate to their buying motives, and then closing the sale. I referenced the other day, yesterday as a matter of fact, after watching the British Open, if you keep track of all the times a golfer actually swings the club to connect with the ball over a 4 or 5 hour expanse of time where they're playing 18 holes of golf, they're really only spending about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, if that, hitting the ball. The rest of it is getting their strategy all lined up, course management, trying to overcome some hurdles that they may be running into. The same thing holds true with the way you are set, the way you do your presentation. You've got to have a complete understanding of exactly what it is you need to do, what needs to be accomplished, and prepare for just about any eventuality. Now, this will all resonate with you, especially if you've sold fewer than 100 weight loss programs. And here's how the learning curves work. After you've sold 10 done 10 presentations, you've probably sold 5 or 6 people. If you haven't, you need some work. If you've sold more than that, don't let it go to your head. It'll correct itself soon enough. If you've done 50 presentations, you've probably enrolled about 25 to 30 people. If you've gotten somewhere around the 100 mark, hopefully you've enrolled somewhere between 60 and 65 people. Now your next 100, you should probably close at about an 75 to 80% close rate. Those are some of the norms. And if you're anything south of that, there could be a number of things that are influencing it. But the number one influencer on a bad close rate is the way we do the presentation. So let's break these things down. The initial greeting. As simple as that sounds, there's some things you want to say when someone first walks into your location that helps set this tone for what it is you're going to have them do. And it's all about collecting a whole bunch of little yeses. So we have a strategy that enables you to collect as many as a half a dozen yeses or affirmative responses before you even sat down with the person. That initial greeting may include a tour of your facility, having them fill out some forms for you. The little thing, these little things that take place, if you can get them to say yes to the small things, it increases the odds that they'll say yes to the big things. So you need to dissect what your initial greeting is like. If someone's just walking in your location and you're like, "Hi, can I help you?" Or the more familiar, "Help you?" If that's the way you're responding to people, that is not a good response. We have a specific way to language when people walk in the door that we've seen in some markets, it influences the close rate by as much as 20%. And in follow-up surveys, it was cited as the number one reason why someone enrolled. There's one single thing you can do when someone walks in the door that will up your close rate, and you don't even have to have any closing skills. So then the second thing after that initial greeting is an icebreaker. You need to establish some kind of common ground with that person. Now, we have all kinds of tools, all kinds of recommendations, all kinds of strategies you can employ to establish some common ground with this person in as little as about a minute and a half. You do not want to spend a whole lot of time becoming friends with this person, and here's why. The more of a friendship you've developed, the more comfortable they feel with you. The more comfortable they feel with you, the more comfortable they feel in telling you no. So you do not want to be buddy-buddy with this person. You need to keep some professional barriers there, if you will, some professional restrictions. You want to have some boundaries between you and them. So we have the initial greeting, then we've got our icebreaker. Now we're getting into fact finding. A lot of you have some sort of an intake form, and it just kind of lists name, rank, serial number, how much do you weigh, how much do you want to weigh. And most of you kind of look at it, but you don't really ask any questions. Well, I'm going to tell you that's where a lot of the sales are lost. You need to really delve into that intake form and make sure you're asking the right questions. And we have all kinds of sample intake forms. If nothing else, if you're one of our clients, you'll want to compare your current intake form to the one that you're using now. And if you're not one, maybe a conversation that we want to have. So you are delving into this intake form, and there are some key things that you're looking for. What are the different ways they heard or saw or learned about you? How long did it take for them to finally reach out to you? Why now? What is it about their weight that has them really concerned? And let me get something, especially if you're new, let's get something right on the table right away. No one enrolls so they can get their blood sugar down. No one enrolls so they can get their blood pressure down. No one enrolls so they can be healthier in the long term. Everyone ultimately enrolls for for greed or fear. They want to get something, or they're afraid of losing something. I want to get a better job, so I need to lose some weight. Or I'm afraid I'm going to miss out on a promotion because I'm overweight and I think that people aren't going to take me seriously. I'm afraid, I'm greed. I want to meet someone new. Or fear, I'm afraid I'm losing my spouse or losing in a relationship because of my weight. There's always something that there's fear or there's greed. I want to get something, or I want to prevent from losing something. Most people just want to look better, and that includes wearing skinny jeans, a little black dress, getting compliments, that their ego is being fed. So you want to get some idea as to what are the real reasons why someone really wants to lose weight. And we have some very easy techniques and protocols to help you identify that very, very quickly. In fact, just to kind of put this into play, from the time someone walks in until the time you're done with the initial fact finding, maybe 15 minutes has gone by. maybe closer to the 12-minute mark. And you will have asked questions and learned more about this person, and they will have said things out loud that they didn't even realize probably existed as to why they're here and why they want to lose weight and why they're motivated to do something about it now. Now, we're doing something during this fact-finding period that I call loading the gun. And that is, prospects and consumers have a tendency to want to exaggerate and deviate from the path of honesty. And that enables them to create some lies that they feel enables them to keep from having to engage in a purchase. And what you want to do is be able to successfully and honestly take those excuses away, take those opportunities away, so they can really look at your opportunity for what it really is. And that is, I have an opportunity to lose weight, save money, improve my health, and feel better about myself. Now, how do we do this? If we figured out why they're really here, we have to overcome a spouse objection or an influencer objection. There is someone in their life they are probably going to say is influencing their decision, but are they really? We have programs and techniques and protocols and trainings that teach you how to overcome those spouse or influencer objections. You need to overcome the money objection. We can show you how something as little as a $5 a day expenditure on foods that contribute to weight gain show up as a $12, $15, $20, $30,000 obesity investment, and that's before they even got to your location. That we're not talking about some future expenditure. We're talking about what they may have conceivably spent before they ever got to you, and that enables you to redirect their thinking to realizing, oh my gosh, I'm going to actually save money being on a weight loss program because this is temporary. I don't have to do this for the rest of my life. So we want to figure out why they're here, overcome the spouse objection, overcome the money objection. We need to deal with fear of failure. The average person has been on 8 to 10 other weight loss programs before they ever got to you. So you need to deal with all the baggage that comes with that. You need to have a good understanding as to any health concerns that they may have, either directly in their family or anecdotally that they're concerned with. And then you need to get some understanding of some major events that are coming up. You have to understand what is the real reason why they want to lose their weight. Now, along the way, you are learning certain things about this person that you absolutely must positively pre-close. The two primary ones are spouse or influencer and money. So let's spend a couple of minutes on that. You will not be successful in the majority of instances when someone gives you a weasel response to whether they're going to enroll, whether their spouse knows about it or not. You need to get some sort of firm commitment from them, and we have a very simple approach to doing that, that they are focused on taking the steps necessary to enroll regardless of what their spouse is thinking about. And this is not a simple, although it's simple to reveal those things, it's not always that easy to overcome, and we provide the training on how to overcome that for the tougher ones. But most of them are not that tough. I mean, the majority of them, if you just ask the question the right way, and we've talked about it in these videos before, the last thing you want to ask is, does your spouse know you're here today? Never, ever ask that question. Ever. It's the dumbest question you could possibly ask, because it's the same thing as giving them a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's like saying to them, here's your opportunity to tell us why you can't buy, and we're going to set it up for you. Yeah, I can't buy because my spouse doesn't know I'm here. I got to go home and talk to them. I just won't feel comfortable unless I do. So there's other questions that you'll want to ask in that regard. Then the money issue, you absolutely have to pre-close on the money issue, because that one will come back to haunt you later on. And there are two simple questions you have to ask on the spouse and on the money that we train and provide guidance on. Now, once all that's taken place, you need to be able to present your program, the features and benefits of your program. But there's actually three elements to it. You're going to present the feature and benefit of it, and then you're going to hit the hot button. You know, we do X, and here's what it does for you, and this is how it'll show up in your personal life. For example, we're going to weigh you every time you come in. That way, the benefit of that is you're held accountable in between times to make sure you're eating the right things and the right measures and doses. And that'll enable you to get to your goal weight sooner and more effectively, so you'll look great for that wedding coming up in the fall. Little structures like that. Now, you're not going to do that on every single feature and benefit, but about every third or fourth one, weave that in. It does a couple of things. One, it reinforces why they're there to hear about your program. And number two, it lets them know you were listening to them. You're going to take care of them. You know why they're there to enroll. So your feature and benefit description, that whole thing should last less than about 3 or 4 minutes. You should not be spending a tremendous amount of time on it. I know some of you have 5 or 6 programs. You decide which program they're going to be on. They're not going to decide. If there's any choice involved, give them 2 choices and you don't really care which one they pick. Either one's going to work for them. But as you are working your way through this process, you are going through feature, benefit, hot button, or feature, benefit, buying motive. Wrap that all up and you should have a single page piece of paper. I can show you, at least the centers we work with, those who have a PowerPoint or some sort of digital presentation have a lower close rate than those who just get out a piece of paper and it lists all the features and benefits and they put a piece of paper over it and slide that paper down line by line by line so no one has an opportunity to read ahead, and they write the pricing in and any discounts and any price drops, any credits the person's getting, anything like that, so they come up with a net amount so they're able to close the sale. So now what have we done? If we're running a clock on this, we're at somewhere around the 18 or 19 minute mark. They've come in, we've done our initial greeting. We've given them a tour of the facility. We've said those key things to up our odds of closing the sale right off the bat. We have given them, we've had a chance to sit down with them, have a brief icebreaker for a minute or two, and now we're starting into their buying motives, why they're here, what their motivation is, how long they've been thinking about it, what's the real reason why they want to lose their weight, who are the people in their world that'll influence this, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a relative, whoever it might be. We've tackled the money issue. We've even tackled the kind of foods that they've eaten, and let's face it, most people lie about the foods they're eating. Have you ever noticed if you have any kind of a diet diary for people to fill out, when they come in the first time, they all want to write green leafy vegetables, a big glass of water, or this or that. Really? That's how you gained your weight? Eating foods like that? No, there's a simple phrase a simple statement you can make to them to congratulate them on their new eating habits and then find out what they used to be eating. We train on that as well. So you've gone through your greeting, your fact finding, your icebreaker, your fact finding. Now you're migrating into features and benefits, and you're really making this program, you're showing the sizzle with the steak at this stage, and now we're going to close. Did you notice our close is not 90% of what we're doing? This is like the golf swing on the part of a professional golfer. The close is, that's the least of our concerns. It's the smallest part of this entire conversation. If I've done everything else that I was supposed to do, the close is a natural, organic part of what we're doing. Now let's get something straight. Assume, if you're not writing things down, you'll definitely want to write these down. This element down. Assume the first 2 times you ask someone to buy, they will tell you no, or I want to think about it, or I don't know what I want to do. Just assume the first 2 and maybe even the first 3 times. Now here's the crazy part. I've watched it. I've sent shoppers in. I've done focus groups. I've done surveys. I've made the calls myself. I've watched it on camera. I have seen this go on for decades. The average salesperson only closes once. One time. And it's usually, so, what do you think? That is not a close. Asking someone to pay for something is a close. That's your program. How do you want to take care of that? Check, cash, or charge? That is a close. So what you have to do is figure out what are 5 or 6 ways I can ask for the money and do it so it doesn't sound like I'm stepping on their neck. And we provide complete guidance and training in that regard. So let's recap these things real quick. If I want to keep that 75-80% close rate within over a reasonable time period, I've got to make sure I do my initial greeting, which would include a tour, having them fill out any intake paperwork, and we got to get that done as fast as possible. We need to do our icebreaker with this person. We need to do our initial fact finding and get all of that done somewhere around the 15 to 18 minute mark. So now when we go to do our features and benefit presentation of the program itself, we can knock that out in 3, maybe 3.5. If they've got a bunch of questions, maybe 4 minutes. So now we're somewhere around the 20, pushing it to 25 minute mark. Now we've got to have those last few minutes to close the sale. Understand something, for those of you that drone on for 45 minutes or an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, if that is a regular part of what you're doing, but you're having success, ignore everything I told you. But I'm sure there's only maybe 2 or 3 out of you out of the thousands of people that watch these things on a regular basis. The overwhelming majority of you that are successful get this whole thing over and done with in 30 minutes. People have a threshold for pain. It's somewhere around the 20 to 21 minute mark. If you are not showing me that I am making progress, then their mind, consumer behavior dictates that they start thinking about ways to get out of this. That's when lies start. Things that don't make any sense. Now, I could drone on and on about this for days and weeks and months, but let me put a bow on this and just say, you've got to have an organized schedule to what you're covering and how fast you're going to cover it. And if you're not keeping an eye on your clock management or an internal egg timer in your head somehow, you need to be, because you're losing people. In fact, we just hit the 21-minute mark on this presentation. 3 times you've already thought about what you need to do after this video, if you've even made it this far. So we need to make sure that you keep people engaged, that they're paying attention to what you're saying, so they're focused and they're present in what you're covering. So when you go to close that sale, they can focus on what the real issues are, so you can help them work through it. Now, there's all kinds of tools that we can also make available that help make closing the sale a reality, and one of which takes money completely off the table. Completely off the table. We might cover that on Thursday. If not, feel free to reach out to us. But there's a way to completely take money out of the equation. So if that is truly the issue, you'll get the sale. And if it's not, you'll find out what it really is. You'd be amazed at how many times money is simply a smokescreen. The last thing is, I'm going to invite everybody watching this, especially if you're staff, take responsibility for the sales that you get. More importantly, take responsibility for the sales you don't get, the missed sales that occur. Don't blame it on the consumer. I remember one of my first sales managers, Greg Dean was his name, used to drive him batty, because he'd sit in a sales meeting and say, okay, so-and-so, why'd you miss this sale? And they would give all these reasons why the prospect wouldn't buy. And I finally figured out, every time you gave all the reasons why someone didn't buy, he'd come back, well, did you say this or did you say that? Did you say this or did you say that? And the salespeople always looked dumbfounded, and you always felt stupid. So I went the opposite direction with it. And I used to say to him, because I didn't pay attention closely enough, or I didn't hone my own skills, or I failed to close the sale sufficiently, or I didn't ask the right questions, or I didn't find the true hot button, but I'm going to do better the next time. In fact, I'm going to ask you to help me with some training on that. Take responsibility for it. If you missed the sale, figure out what you left out. Do not blame it on the consumer. The reality is that 8 out of 10 people are a viable source of sales. 2 out of 10 are not, and that's for things outside of your control. You're too tall, you're too short, your hair's too blonde, it's too dark. You remind them of someone they don't like, or someone that gave them stress in their life. There's some reason they just don't like you, and they're not going to buy from you, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So focus on the 8 out of 10 that do buy from you, but take responsibility for anything south of 8 out of 10. If you're lower than an 80% close rate, take a look at what you're doing. Now, it may be your pipeline of leads, that's a whole nother conversation, or it may be something you're doing in the sales presentation. But the bottom line is, if you're making a zillion bucks doing this, who cares whether you got a 50% close rate or an 80% close rate? It's all about ultimately the revenue, the commission, saving lives, and making money. So if you want to get more information on how IntelliFran might be able to help your practice, your clinic, your weight loss offering, click us, call us, set up an appointment. We'll have a conversation with you. We can't help everybody, about a third of the people that reach out to us. Again, we work with doctors, chiropractors, franchise investors. We work with a lot of franchisees with national brands, more regionalized brands, and a lot of standalone individuals that have started their own weight loss companies that are looking for that guidance to find out what is going on in the marketplace. We work with over 125 locations in the U.S. and Canada. We're able to share with you what's working in other markets so that you can plug that into your market. We provide market exclusivity, so you're not worried about competing with one of our other locations or one of our other client locations. If you'd like more information, get a hold of us.